This is Dora Bailey, ladies and gentlemen, talking to you from the front of the Chinese Theater in Hollywood. What a night, ladies and gentlemen. What a night. Every star in Hollywood's heaven is here to make Monumental Pictures' premiere of The Royal Rascal, the outstanding event of 1927.
Okay, record now.
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait, You Haven't Seen? It's a show where we talk about movies, and specifically, we talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, a.k.a. TV's Travis. This is episode number 361, and our movie this week is the classic musical Singin' in the Rain, and here to talk with me about it, it's Kevin Cafferty. Kevin, how are you?
Got a podcast. I'm doing great. I'm really excited to talk about this, one of my favorite movies of all time, and I think it's a lot of people consider this one of their favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, looking at like lists and things, you know, AFI top lists and 1001 movies you should see before you die, all those types of things. This movie ranked super high on all of those. So, what's your history with Singin' in the Rain? When did you first see it, and how did it become one of your favorite movies, if not your favorite movie?
I came to this film relatively late in life. I had not seen it as a young person or as a teenager or even as a college student in film classes. I am lucky to live in an area that has a really strong repertory film screening culture and where there are several theaters who show old films. And before I had kids, I remember it was like a rainy Sunday and the Brattle Theater in Harvard Square was showing Singin' in the Rain. And my wife and I were like, oh, we've never seen this. We hear it's good. We should go check it out. And it was one of my favorite movie theater experiences of all time. I was completely charmed by this movie. And it very much rose to the top of like one of my favorites. I think part of that is it has a really high rewatchability factor.
Yes, I can see that for sure. So I had not seen this before, and in fact, going into watching it for this episode, what I knew about Singin' in the Rain was I had seen the Singin' in the Rain moment, you know, Gene Kelly hanging off of the lamppost, all of that. And I knew, well, I didn't realize it was from this, but I knew the Good Morning song because I'd heard that in other places. That's it. I knew nothing about this.
I will say in high school, I had seen A Clockwork Orange.
Okay.
So I knew that scene.
Right.
And I knew it was referencing a classic song and a classic film.
Mm-hmm.
But I also knew it was kind of perverting that classic song and that classic film. And I believe Gene Kelly was not pleased with Singin'
I would
in the Rain's
imagine not.
inclusion in that movie. But that did not it had been enough time between me seeing Clockwork Orange and me seeing Singin' in the Rain where it didn't color. But I was aware of that scene as well in Clockwork Orange.
Yes, I was aware. Like I knew Singin' in the Rain as a like a cultural thing. I knew it's a musical. A lot of people have cited it as one of the best musicals and whatnot. I just had never watched it and I knew nothing about it. I didn't know, I did not realize that it was a classic movie about classic Hollywood I love movies about movies. It is one of my favorite things, whether it be, you know, something like Sunset Boulevard or this movie or any number of films that dive into the film industry always fascinates me just because it's such a fascinating area. And so, but I didn't realize that that's what this was. I just didn't know. So that was kind of fun going into it. I knew Gene Kelly. And again, that was basically it. I didn't realize it was Debbie Reynolds in this until she popped up and I'm like, whoa, that's a baby Debbie Reynolds. And she was cast at 19. But it wasn't her first film. She had done, I think, 4 or 5 movies at this point. But that was impressive. By the way, I have to, if I don't mention that Gene Kelly was born in Pittsburgh, one of my listeners, Ash, will never let me live that down. So Gene Kelly, Pittsburgh's own Gene Kelly, starring as Don Lockwood. And I got to say, watching this, I get a lot of the love for it, and I get the rewatchability especially, because it definitely has that to it. The songs are great. I also didn't know until I was reading about it. It's not a jukebox musical, but not all of the songs were written specifically for this movie. And I found that fascinating.
I was going to say it's not a jukebox musical, but it's also not a jukebox musical.
Right.
Because it is the majority of the songs in this film were existing songs in the MGM library. And one of my favorite things about Singin' in the Rain is I don't want to say people didn't care about the craft, but I feel like Singin' in the Rain is like Casablanca in that no one went into this thinking they were making a masterpiece, I think. I think they were going into it thinking they wanted to do the best job they did to make a great movie that people would enjoy. And it wound up being one of the most beloved films of all time. Just because movies are a collaborative medium, and for whatever reason, everything went right. I feel like right before Singin' in the Rain, Gene Kelly had made An American in Paris. And I think that is more self-consciously Gene Kelly trying to make an artistic statement. And I really like An American in Paris, but I don't like it as much as Singin' in the Rain. And at the time of release, American in Paris was held in much higher regard than Singin' in the Rain. Like that won the Oscar for Best Picture. Like Singin' in the Rain, when it came out, was one of those things that was considered, oh, this is a nice trifle. And then I think as it was broadcast on television regularly, especially in the 60s and 70s, that's when people really started to fall in love with this movie in a similar way, I think, to The Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz, I was also thinking It's a Wonderful Life had a similar type of thing going on where It's a Wonderful Life was actually less liked, I think, in its time, but then when it became ubiquitous, people kind of latched onto it. And I could see that happening with this movie. What I like about it is how enjoyable all of the characters are in this. And then you read about the making of it, and apparently Gene Kelly was not easy to work with.
I was going to say that he was a real son of a bitch on the set of this film. Like, no one has nice things to say about Gene Kelly.
No, including
on this film.
He
including
even said,
himself.
He's like, I was difficult to work with. I'm surprised that Debbie Reynolds spoke to me after this. Years later, he kind of went on to say that. And I did read something where he was upset with his contract. And again, a lot of this is internet trivia, so you always have to take it with a grain of salt. I don't know if he was just difficult or if he actually was being difficult in an attempt to get himself fired from his contract. That feels a little more like kind of revisionist history.
I think maybe a little from column A and a little from column B there.
True.
He seemed pretty demanding. Not a lot of co-stars work with Gene Kelly more than once.
I did see that
through his film career. Judy Garland's in there a couple times, but Summerstock was near the end of Judy Garland's career. And I think he was working with her because she was a big name too. But I think Judy Garland did not have the film options she did earlier in her career. Yeah. But not a lot of people are like, oh, I want to work with Gene again.
Yeah, he was apparently very demanding and very difficult and very demonstrative, both to cast and crew. Debbie Reynolds, he made cry, and she would hide. This is a story. I want this to be true. Well, I want half of it to be true anyway. That he was so rough on her, she would hide and cry, and Fred Astaire saw her and asked her what was wrong, and she said, well, Gene Kelly and he offered to help her because she didn't have like professional dance, which I did not know until after I watched it. She had no real professional dancing training prior to this movie.
No, she was a gymnast.
And so like, luckily that helps transfer, right? Some of those skills can, but her dancing is really good in this. And when she was doing it, I was very impressed. So,
and I think she worked like hell to get there. You hear about the Good Morning sequence, that scene where the three of them jump on the couch. Apparently that took all day and all night, and her feet were bleeding by the end of it.
Man, I cannot imagine doing that much work. I mean, it's stunt work, dancers, that kind of stuff. When you hear these stories, like right now I'm going through a lot of martial arts films, and you hear these stories of being on set on some of these Hong Kong films, especially, and how they'll just go for 10, 12, 16 hours and they're doing stunts all day, and just how rough that can be. And Jackie Chan had a great line I remember in an interview he gave where it had to do with some little bit that he did in a movie with like a fan, where he threw the fan up and it swirled and he caught it again. And people would come up to him and say how impressive that was and how amazing it was. Like, it's not that impressive. I can work on it all day. I can do it 150 times until I get it right. You just see the time I got it right. So doing stuff like that, but all the dancing here, whether it's, Gene Kelly, Donald O'Connor as Cosmo in this, I loved Cosmo. Cosmo was my second favorite character in this movie.
Yeah, and you talk about Debbie Reynolds' feet bleeding. After Donald O'Connor shot the Make 'em Laugh sequence, he was in the hospital for days recovering from that sequence, which is an astounding sequence.
I
It's
want to talk
probably-
about that so much.
Yeah, and it's telling you mentioned Jackie Chan, because Jackie Chan has rather famously cited Gene Kelly as one of his biggest influences as a screen presence.
Oh, I can see it, and I was just listening to an interview with Scott Adkins talking about getting into acting and starting off in some of those Hong Kong films when he was getting started, and how tough it was, because he's like, Jackie and Sammo Hung, they come from like the Peking school, the opera school, where they had to do stuff like handstands all morning and things like that. And then but I can see the Gene Kelly influence in Jackie in his presence, because Gene Kelly in this, Don Lockwood, it's a fun character because he doesn't take himself too seriously throughout most of the movie. At one point he does, and he gets down on himself, but then he sort of is able to, because he's got Cosmo there, he's able to kind of steer into the skid, pull out of it, and kind of fall back on the vaudeville roots that he had as a character. And that to me was really interesting and fun. I think is the biggest thing with that, is the fun factor of all of these musical numbers and these dance routines. And you can see the work that put into it. And Gene Kelly was what, 39?
He was 39, yeah. He was about 20 years older than Debbie Reynolds.
Which,
and there is, I feel, from the first frame to the last frame of this film, like it's suffused with joy, and you do not get the sense that this film was a joy to make, but I feel like the film itself just kind of radiates joy at you while you're watching it. I'm going to make a terrible comparison,
No, go for
but it reminds me of Evil Dead 2, because I feel like Evil Dead 2 is another film that is suffused with love of film and love of filmmaking.
Yes.
Where, like, while you're watching it, all this horrible stuff is happening on screen, but you also think, these people love making this movie.
Yes. And it's really cool in this particular movie how you hear these stories of how difficult it was making it, and then in the movie itself and the movie within a movie, Don Lockwood and Lena hate each other. Or he hates her, and she's looking out for herself, but also there's a whole like just interesting dichotomy between them and their relationship. But yet there's this joy from the movie. So it's like this art imitating life, but also, I don't know, it's like the perfect mix of things. And I enjoyed the hell out of that. And that was Jean Hagen.
Jean Hagen, who was nominated for an Oscar for this.
Yes.
For this role. And she is fantastic in this movie. She is so funny.
She is absolutely hilarious. And you have to play a character like that, you have to be self-aware, and you have to understand that what you do as a profession is inherently silly, right? It's inherently, acting is both incredibly vulnerable and also very, very silly, because you're just pretending all day. But she understood that and was willing to play this type of character who is very shrill and very like difficult. And I love that there's constantly, I think she asks it like 3 or 4 times throughout the movie. Am I dumb? Do you think I'm dumb?
What do you think I am? Dumb or something?
Yeah. And like
and I mean, she has some of the best lines in this film, I think.
She does. And she's not. And that's the fun thing, is Lena is not dumb. She sounds dumb because of the accent that she's putting on and the way that she speaks, but she's very shrewd. She's just not quite as shrewd as maybe she thinks she is. which is wonderful the way that whole arc goes. I also learned that, and this again is kind of the movie making side of things. They had the songs and things picked out before they had a story. And so then the screenwriters had to basically backfill a story into it to work with whatever music they were going to use.
And that's where I feel like it's kind of like a jukebox musical.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it's not exactly, but these are all existing songs from around the transition from silence to talkies. And I think that's what gave them the idea to say like, oh, why don't we make this movie about that since we're using a bunch of songs from that period anyway?
Yeah. Which was a very fun backdrop, I think, for the movie as well. The transition from silent film to talkies and having Don and Lena be the silent film megastars.
And I was thinking about it because when you watch it, you feel like, oh, this is a movie about such a long time ago. But when this film was made, it was maybe the difference between now and when Lord of the Rings came out.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Which is melts my brain to think about that. Mm-hmm. But time is an illusion, and lunchtime doubly so. No, I loved that idea though, because that old Hollywood, and this is 1940s, 1950s Hollywood talking about Hollywood from 20 years something earlier. But I love kind of classic Hollywood. I love, these MGM movies that are all shot on sound stages, and you can tell they have that look about them, but there's like this charm to that I really, really like. And then to have the movie based in 1927 and getting to see, like, I'm a sucker for seeing a backlot and like characters walking through as there's other movies being made behind them. Some a little bit problematic for today's audiences, but hey, Man,
that was the one scene where I was like, ugh.
You cringe a little, like, oh man, we've come a little ways.
I called those like landmines in old movies because I love old movies. Mm-hmm. And every so often you're in the groove on one and something like that pops up and it just takes you right out of it. And like, you feel like, you feel momentarily like a bad person for watching it.
A little bit. Yeah. And you're like, well, okay. It's sort of like, it's how I equate something like one of my favorite movies growing up was Short Circuit. And Fisher Stevens in Short Circuit playing an Indian character. You wouldn't do that today. He wouldn't do that today. He's even said that in interviews. But at the time, he was cast and he was asked, can you do an accent? And he said, yes, I can. And that's what he did. You go back and you watch it now and it's kind of, oh boy, but that's what was happening then. And so I can give it the benefit of the doubt there, but also know that like, it's not cool, even if it was accepted.
It's hard. It's nice that we know more than we did then mm-hmm. about what is and is not cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
And I feel like, one of the things I look for is like, does this feel malicious? Like,
yes.
You watch Birth of a Nation and you're like, can I swear?
A little bit. Yeah, go for it.
And you're like, fuck this movie. Like, no, it was a different time. Fuck this movie. And then, you watch other stuff and you think like, this is misguided.
Yes.
But I think no one here, and I feel like Singin' in the Rain, it feels like that scene with the backlot where, I mean, just to, there's a scene where they walk past like some stereotypical African tribes from which were shown like what you'd see in King Kong, for instance. Mm-hmm. And that's where you're like, they're trying to portray that, but watching it through today's eyes, it feels like poor representation. It feels like not the best idea.
No, it doesn't. It's not the best idea, but it's also representative of its time. It would be like a movie shot about the 70s, and there's things that happened during that time that would be questioned today. But if you're going for at that time, it just makes sense. So it's one of those, when I saw it, I just kind of, I did cringe a little bit, but then I'm like, okay, they're not lingering on it. They're not making a huge deal about it, and they moved on fairly quickly. There's also things like there's the song, the Beautiful Girls song is another one where I was like, okay, it's got a line in there about, well, you're over sweet 16. Good Lord, I hope so.
Happy International Women's Day, Travis.
Right? Yes, as we record this, it is International Women's Day. And yeah, that moment, I was like, okay, yeah, but that's also like songs. Songs were doing that all over the place. We have grown a little bit in the last few decades. Not a lot, but a little.
And that's a line in the song. I actually didn't clock that when I was watching it. I must have been sort of like, it just sailed past, got into my subconscious. That's how the patriarchy gets you, man.
It really does. Another interesting thing about this from a kind of filmmaking standpoint is we have the old Hollywood structure of opening credits and no end credits. When we get to the end of the film, we get the end. That's it. No end credits and very few credits on screen. Like the cast, for instance, the only credited cast members are Gene Kelly, Donald O'Connor, Debbie Reynolds, Gene Hagen, Sid Charisse, who was the dancer at the very end in the final sequences.
In the Dream Ballet at the end, yes.
Which I have thoughts on, I want to talk about.
Which we'll get to.
Millard Mitchell, Douglas Foley, Rita Moreno. And that's
who doesn't have much to do in the movie. Her number was cut.
Yeah, which bums me out because I love Rita Moreno. And when I saw her and playing Zelda Zanders, which the opening to this movie is great with the movie premiere. And that's immediately I'm like, oh, this is about making movies. Cool. Like I was hooked immediately. And almost 100% by the one fan, because you get the raucous fans. They're at the premiere, and you got the woman announcing as everybody shows up. When Zelda shows up, there's the shot of just one guy that pops up, screams the name Zelda, and he just has this look on his face. It is, if I can ever be half as excited about anything as that character was about seeing Zelda, I would die a happy man. It was phenomenal. No, it's a bummer that Rita's song got cut though, because she's amazing. Rita Moreno is absolutely wonderful. But that was it. Those are the credited actors. Everyone else is uncredited, which is crazy to think about today's movies. You know, nowadays you get a couple occasional like uncredited cameos, and it's usually those are uncredited cameos. Somebody doing like a favor for a director or a producer that they like.
Yeah, and I have to assume part of that is like SAG contracts.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Union contracts have changed. And because I like credits at the beginning of a movie, kind of get you in the mood. You're sitting down, you're like, all right, there's a little overture. We're gonna see who directed this, who wrote it, and then we'll get into it, and then it'll say the end, and I don't have to feel guilty for not sitting through the credits.
True. No, I love a good opening credit sequence. It's crazy when you have so many. And I'm not even talking like the extras and the background players, but characters like Kathleen Freeman playing Phoebe Dinsmore, the diction coach for Lena. I love Kathleen Freeman. Like she was, she's I can't remember her name in the Blues Brothers, but she's the one sister in Blues Brothers. She was in. She had a small part in the '80s Dragnet movie with Dan Aykroyd. Is the first thing I think of with her because I saw that when I was young and it sort of imprinted on me. But see, I recognized her right away and I was like, that's a young Kathleen Freeman that doesn't sound like Kathleen Freeman, which is even funnier to me that she's being the diction coach because I always think of her as this like sass talking, just blue collar type character. So for her to be this proper diction coach was, to me, cracked me up.
Yeah, you go to this movie's IMDb page, and there are what looks like 100 uncredited cast members on the IMDb page. And like you said, maybe 9 credited cast members.
My favorite, by the way, I mentioned that Cosmo was my second favorite character in this movie. He's phenomenal. Donald O'Connor's Cosmo is... So at its heart, this movie is a musical and it's also a romantic comedy. And I noticed that like we have a meet cute and we have all of the trappings of a romantic comedy. And Cosmo is the quirky friend that every one of those has. I loved him. But my favorite character in the entire movie is 100% Roscoe Dexter, the director, for for the films, played by Douglas Fowley, who was basically just like TV, movie, bit part player throughout his career. Like you look up and down his IMDb, and it's just every show that was on TV and sprinkle in a bunch of movies here and there. But Texter was just...
He has a very good scream.
Oh, he was phenomenal. I have audio I captured of him. I'll play later, but I just loved him as like, he's the director, which is another thing that I also really like, is looking at the old studio system, and you've got the studio players and people that are under contract and they can only work for that studio and those pictures. But it's, and they're just making the same thing over and over, which is also cracking me up. Their silent movies are basically the same plot, just change the costumes out, change the music, but it's the same people doing the same things in every movie. And they point that out. They make fun of that in this movie, which was great.
And you say this is a romantic comedy, and I do think if this movie does have a strike against it, it's that I do not care if Don Lockwood and Kathy Selden get together at the end. They do not have a lot of chemistry together. A lot of their numbers are sort of like, there's her like standing on a ladder and him sort of regaling her in a studio, which looks really beautiful. And I like that song, but you don't get the sense that these two are soulmates. It's just, he sort of announces at one point, I'm in love with her. I mean, the big I'm in love with her number, the title song, which is the most famous sequence in the movie, is a solo dance by Gene Kelly, which totally works. At that point, you believe this guy is in love, but he could be in love with anyone in that sequence. And, when we were texting back and forth about doing this episode, we were also talking about Fred Astaire, Ginger Roger movies, and you watch the two of them in one of their musicals.
Mm-hmm.
And as an audience member, you want them to get together because of the chemistry when they're dancing together. And with Gene Kelly and Debbie Reynolds, I did not feel the on-screen chemistry between those two. Could be the age difference, could be like he's 20 years older than her. And like, I'm not going to give any shade to Debbie Reynolds. She is cuter than homemade shoes in this movie.
Oh, yes.
And I'm not going to, and like I said, when Gene Kelly is doing the solo I'm in love number, the movie totally works. I did not buy them as a couple.
No, I didn't either. And I think a little bit of it is probably the age difference, but I think also that's the behind the scenes issues showing up, where she's doing the work. It's a tribute to their professionalism that they had any chemistry at all on screen and that they worked well together. But no, there was no, and I think also it kind of plays to the way that they had the songs and musical numbers mapped out first and then built a story into it, as opposed to starting with a plot and then putting songs into that plot. I think makes a difference too. So, and
Gene Kelly has more romantic dance chemistry with Sid Charisse in this movie, which is in a sequence that is entirely unrelated to the plot.
Yeah, and almost felt like we've got to pad the runtime. Let's add another musical number at the end. I loved it. I loved that whole melody, the Broadway melody at the end from a spectacle standpoint. But it does feel like that could be in any movie almost.
Do you want to get into that now, or do you want to get into it later?
We can get into that now. Sure.
Yeah, I think that was something Gene Kelly was very interested in, was inserting a dream ballet into his films. There's one in American in Paris too. And I think there's an element of pad the runtime, but I think there's also an element of this is something he was just very interested in having in the film. And I think in early versions, Debbie Reynolds was supposed to be playing the Sid Charisse part, but
yes, I did read that.
I don't think her dancing was to the point where he felt that she could do it. So they got Sid Charisse, who is fantastic in this movie.
Yeah.
I think she really pops in what is a small role. And it also leads into what I think is the best joke in the film.
Okay.
Coming out of it. When RF says, well, I can't quite picture it.
Yeah. Put it on film.
So, because I love how flimsy the setup for it is. It's like, well, the dancing cavalier gets hit on the head, and then he has this dream ballet. The first time I watched this movie, I had never seen a Harold Lloyd film, so I didn't realize that, the way Gene Kelly sort of dressed and acting at the beginning is referencing Harold Lloyd.
Mm.
So that was interesting to me on my most recent watch. I watched it with my kids too, who were quite enchanted by it. And I don't know, I think it's such a cool sequence, and I think it's such an example of what Gene Kelly was trying to do to sort of bring ballet to the masses,
Hmm.
that I really like it in the film. I could see how someone would be like, this isn't really moving the plot forward at all. But a lot of this movie does not move the plot forward at
No,
all.
it doesn't.
Like the Moses Supposes song. It's like they say, like, for a musical to really do its job, the song should either advance the plot or reveal character. And very few of these songs do that.
Which is funny to me because I agree with that, in that what you should do is have the music serve a plot and serve a story. And 9 times out of 10, that's what I want. But here it doesn't. And I don't care because
Yeah.
the music is so good and the choreography is so good. And there's just so much charm to it. Like the Singing in the Rain moment, I adore a backlot set like that. And apparently Gene Kelly had like 103-degree fever while filming it. And it took a couple of days. So he was, at least for part of it, fairly sick, but still very difficult.
No wonder he was grumpy.
But I love the look of it. Now, originally that was going to be all 3 of them for that scene, and I sort of got that feeling from like the very opening where they're doing the Singing in the Rain kind of overture, and
Yes.
the 3 of them. But it was decided that it would be a better solo thing for Gene Kelly to do. But like, it's just so good, and I love so much about it. And then the way it ends with the cop coming up and kind of staring at him. And my note on that was, he's not hurting anybody. There's nobody on the street. Leave him alone. He's just splashing he's a kid splashing in the puddle.
And then he gives his umbrella to some other dude, and
Yep.
that is such a good sequence. I know that's like, I'm being Captain Obvious here. Like the Singing in the Rain sequence and Singing in the Rain is one of the best sequences in a movie of all time. But like, I think it might be like my favorite solo dance sequence in film.
When I think classic Hollywood and musical, that sequence pops into my head. Even before seeing the movie, it popped into my head. It's that ubiquitous, but seeing it in context, even more so, because it just, the second it starts, and it's just it is actually a really cool character moment, because we had, we get the transition from silent films to talkies, and they are in the middle of production when the producer comes into the studio and is like, the jazz singer did great. We gotta switch and do, talking pictures now. And so they shut everything down to rework and do talking pictures, and that goes horrible. They give basically a test screening of it. It goes bad. And so at this point, Don is just down. He's like, that's it. My career's over. I'm not coming back from this. It's a wash. And he gets uplifted by Kathy and Cosmo. And then it's him falling for Kathy and realizing that. So then the Singing in the Rain song is just him, like, I love that, because it's this outpouring of emotion from him of just, I feel great. I'm happy. I don't care that it's raining and pouring rain. I am the happiest I have ever been.
They've solved his problem where he thought his career was going to be over. And, they come up with the idea to turn his silent film, The Dueling Cavalier, into The Dancing Cavalier. They do the Good Morning number, which is also really great and really joyful. And then they go into Singing in the Rain. It's just like, you're like, God, this movie could not get better. I think it's so good. And I love movies from that transition period, that kind of pre-code Hollywood time, because you can see them figure it out if you watch enough of those in real time. I'm even thinking, like, the difference between the Bela Lugosi Dracula and the James Whale Frankenstein is miles, and they're like a year apart.
Yeah.
And, Dracula feels like a stage play, and Frankenstein feels a little bit more like a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's fun to watch a movie where they're learning how to make a movie too.
Yes.
That's part of why I love movies about making movies, because general audiences don't understand what goes into making a movie. Like this shows us, basically the birth of talking in pictures, but also like something as ubiquitous as ADR that we have today, that, you know, so much dialogue is done after the fact. And here it is being done in this movie to hide the voice of the movie star, the silent stars, because that was a real thing. Like silent movie stars had trouble making the transition sometimes because their voice wouldn't match the persona that they put out there. And
Absolutely. I think you find that with Buster Keaton.
Yep.
I think.
I mean, even Charlie Chaplin had.
Even Charlie Chaplin, I mean, was a big enough star that he hung on making ostensibly silent films up until The Great Dictator, which was in like 1940, I think.
Yes, I do believe so.
But, you know, Modern Times came out in 1936. We were well into talkies then, and even City Lights. And City Lights and Modern Times are masterpieces. Do not get me wrong, but it's interesting how he was like, I'm not ready to go there yet.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard. And Don in this movie is kind of like that because he has a good thing going at the start of the movie, right? Don is he's able to show up. He's able to do basically the same thing in every movie. He gets to be a swashbuckler or whatever it is and do some dancing, whatever. And it's great. And he's got a wonderful, outgoing, gregarious personality, and he can be the mouthpiece for the studio and kind of keep her under wraps, and she can just be on screen. And Lena's whole role in the early studio in this movie is to be on screen and be pretty. And they hide it. They shelter her from the public, which I will say, watching it, it was one of those where I'm like, I was cognizant of it. I could see it right away. Like, man, he won't even let her talk. And at first, it took me a minute to realize, oh, she hasn't actually spoken anything yet. Like, because we get that whole flashback sequence which that got me when he rolls up to the premiere and the woman that's like announcing everybody, the journalist, wants to know his story. And so he just starts telling like his life story at the film premiere in front of all the people. Was killing me. But I loved it because it was the juxtaposition of what he was talking about versus what we were seeing in the flashbacks. But I didn't realize until partway through it, oh, she's not talking in any of these. Every time they would have a chance for her to give dialogue, you don't hear her voice. So then when she did, then I'm like, yeah, okay, she's going to sound awful when she talks. And sure enough, it was exactly what voice I was picturing in my head. Did
it meet your expectations?
It really did. I was like, oh, she's going to sound like, I think my thought was she's going to sound like Harley Quinn. Like that's that high pitched, real nasally voice. And that's exactly what they went with.
Yeah, she's not that far from Harley. R.I.P. Arlene Sorkin. But I think that I'm sorry, I lost my thought there.
Well, one thing I will say that a note that I gave myself watching this was this movie shows one of the few times that test audiences actually got it right. Because they have that screening of the movie and everything that could go wrong went wrong with it. You know, her voice is terrible. She doesn't understand how to work the microphone, which I get from a certain standpoint. Like, you're not used to that. She's used to acting very pantomime, right? And very exaggerated movements and emotion because that was what silent films needed.
Yeah. There aren't a lot of actors who made the transition all that smoothly.
No, it's very silent film to talking film is so different. Just like stage acting and film acting is so different.
I think Garbo did, but even like you watch Grand Hotel and the person in that movie who really pops is Joan Crawford.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was really interesting for that. I adore the whole scene where they're trying to explain to her the microphone. It just killed me the whole way through because you're watching Roscoe just die a little more every single time. He's just like, can we just do this thing? He doesn't, because he is so used to, the silent film era of directing, which was sitting in the chair with the megaphone, barking out what they're supposed to be doing as they film it, which is so weird to think about. That was how movies were made at that time, but that was.
Yeah, and the dialogue too, where Don Lockwood like,
Yes.
can I just do what I normally do and go, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, and that was like got a big laugh in the test screening, and that apparently is something that happened to a silent film star when they went to talkies that he didn't recover from.
Hmm.
It wasn't his voice, but he was just doing that. He was just saying this insipid dialogue that he would say on the set of silent films, and it ruined his career.
Because again, like silent film, it's all in your movements and your presence. Your dialogue is irrelevant because they're just going to add dialogue cards later. But everything you're doing is these big, grand gesture movements. And yeah, the whole scene with the microphone was great because they hide the microphone and they keep telling her. And my favorite part of that was like, and I didn't know if they were going to do this or not, when he goes back into the booth and it's her doing her normal, head movements back and forth, and you're just hearing the sound go past the microphone every time.
Yes.
So you're getting like every third word. And he comes out and he's telling her, and I got audio of that too, but like all of that. So then they're hiding the microphones in places and it's not working. They're getting her heartbeat or they're hiding
Yeah,
on her shoulder.
it's
And
in like a flower on a brooch.
I think my favorite was when they're watching the finished product and she takes the fan she's got and taps him on the shoulder. And it's just
Yes.
thump, thump. Just that sounds like she's hitting him with a baseball bat. It was amazing. But I loved how like it's a test audience basically. And I shouldn't say I hate, but I'm not a big fan of like rough cutting a movie, showing it to a test audience and then making major changes to it. But in this case, it did actually work because what they ended up doing was pivoting away from what they were making and say, well, we'll make it into a musical. And also goes to show that reshoots on film is old as film itself. It's not a new thing to do a lot of reshoots. It wasn't as common to do that back then, but it still could happen. So
I think sometimes with test audience screenings, it can be helpful to be like, what are our blind spots? What is not landing with an audience
sure,
that we think is? I think about, and this is far afield, I think about Pretty in Pink, the John Hughes movie.
that's
Because
a good one.
in the original cut of that film,
Mhm.
Andy gets together with Ducky, and audiences like hated that ending.
Yes,
And
that's a
they
very good.
reshot it, and they, where she gets together with Blaine instead at the end. And I think for that movie, that's the right call because that movie's a fairy tale. And, Ducky has his happy ending too. And then, John Hughes goes and makes some kind of wonderful to get the ending he wanted. But I don't think John Cryer and Molly Ringwald had enough on-screen chemistry that audiences wanted them together. So that to me is an example of where a test audience maybe got things right.
Yeah, and
I think there are examples.
there
I
are.
also think there are plenty of examples where test audiences like screw up a film too. So
They
it's-
can, or if that screening of the film isn't complete, I think is where my problem is with it. When you show a movie that's not complete to a test audience, they don't get the full picture of it, and then you make changes based off of that. That can be rough.
Yeah.
Um,
But the Dueling Cavalier was complete.
Yes.
And then they showed it to a test audience and they were like, we have a disaster here. And that's when they decided to change it.
Yeah, which to me is also it's just like a great plot point of we're gonna make it into a musical, and well, how are we gonna do that? Oh well, we've got somebody that can do the voice, and do the singing and all of that, and you can
Cosmo's,
dance. You can
Cosmo
just
can do the songs.
yeah, he can do the songs, and you can just dance around her and have her react to that, and boom, you got a movie, and
I love the behind the scenes tidbit that there are some scenes where it's Gene Hagen's actual voice, but Debbie
Yes.
Reynolds is pretending to be voicing it over for Gene Hagen's fake voice. It's very meta.
It's very meta, and I'm so glad you mentioned that because I read that and it just made me giggle. Like you've got Debbie Reynolds' character is doing voice for Gene Hagen's character in the movie, but it's Gene Hagen's voice being the Debbie Reynolds character. Like it's just perfect. It's great because Gene Hagen had a great voice. She really did, but the accent and the voice that she was putting on for the character of Lena was pitch perfect and exactly what it needed to be.
I've said it before. It's such a good performance.
Very deserving of her Oscar nomination,
Yeah.
honestly.
And that's the thing. There is not a performance in this movie that I don't think is really delightful.
And again, when you know that like Gene Kelly was difficult to work with, both for the actors and the co-director, because Gene Kelly co-directed this with Stanley Donen.
Yes.
And even Stanley had said like he was difficult with me and whatnot. But the performances are just so good throughout. I mean, okay, my favorite sequence in the film, hands down, bar none, make them laugh. It was just so much fun.
It's amazing. And that was the sequence that my kids loved the most, bar none. Like they were like my son Alexander, who is 9, was like, why isn't he in movies? Why is his friend in movies?
Right?
I can't see his like Donald O'Connor really brings the thunder in that number. And you know, I mentioned this earlier, but like he was in the hospital for days after. I think he smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day at the time of shooting. And like you can see that number taking a lot out of him. And I also read they shot it and then something happened to the negative and then they had to shoot it again.
That
and
was
there's a
he talked
lot
about
of one take shots in that sequence.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's an old Hollywood thing for sure, is you lock off the camera and you just shoot a wide shot and do a bunch of it and edit it together, which I love because you get to see so much more of the action that's going on. And in a sequence like that, and in a dance sequence, that's what you want. You want to be able to see this in action. Again, I've been doing a lot of martial arts films lately, and one of the things with that is choreography is great, but you also have to understand how to film choreography and where to place your camera in certain scenes. And in this case, it was a few very simple setups and let Donald O'Connor just really run with it and do the gags. And it was very Buster Keaton that I got. And I loved, it works so well because at the beginning of the movie, we set up that he and Don both have a vaudeville background. And that was how they got started. And he falls back on that a lot. And so this sequence was just him like trying to cheer up his buddy. And he does this whole number and it was already impressive. Like I loved all the kind of Buster Keaton-like stuff that he was doing with the little mannequin and whatnot.
It's funny you say that because Donald O'Connor starred in the Buster Keaton story movie.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can absolutely see it. But it was like so much of it was great. The song was wonderful. It was very what song was it reminiscent of? I read
Be a Clown.
Be a Clown.
Cole
That's
Porter.
what it was. Yes. But like it, which
to the point where I think legal action was threatened.
Probably. I mean, but look, like if you're gonna steal, you steal from the best, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're gonna copy a song, copy some Cole Porter. Right?
But no one singing "Be a Clown" is running up a wall and then doing a somersault.
So everything in that sequence was wonderful, and then when he did that move, that blew my mind, and he did it twice, and he got some height on that.
Yeah, that's some of the most amazing stunt stuff I've seen in a movie. Like you said, like on the level of what you'd see Buster Keaton do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It is on that level of, there is a video I saw and I cannot remember who it is now, but it's a pair of brothers dancing. It's not, I think they were involved.
The guys from Stormy Weather.
Yeah. And I think they were like involved with Cab Calloway maybe or something too, but there's these two brothers doing this dance number and part of
the
it
Nicholas brothers.
That's them. Like it's that level to me of impressive.
Yes.
Because like there's a moment with the Nicholas brothers that do stuff that I'm just like, I'm feeling my hamstrings tear off the bone as I'm watching them.
How can human beings do this?
Yes, exactly. People don't move that way, but they did. And seeing O'Connor just 2 steps and backflip off a wall, and then realizing this is 1952 as well, like you have to think about that part of it. You know, he's in his late 20s, I think. He's a little bit younger than Gene Kelly, but that was impressive.
If I tried to do that, I would be dead.
Oh yeah, no, I'd land on my head and snap my spine. Absolutely. But he does all of that. He does the lay down on the ground and spin in a circle, like running bit. I'm sure I could feel the rug burn from that. It's just phenomenal.
That's where my kid went, like Homer Simpson.
Yes. there was a quote from Donald O'Connor, who, you're right, smoked 4 packs a day, which, yeesh, like doing what he did in that sequence without ever smoking a cigarette in your life would be impressive. The fact that he was able to do that while being a chain smoker is great. But he's like, yeah, getting up those walls was murder. They had to bank one wall so I could make it up. But then like the third one is a hollow wall. So he just went feet first right through it like a torpedo. But he's like, and it was a concrete floor too. And he just had to absorb the impact. But then they came back a couple days later after he was able to rest in a hospital bed for a couple of days. And the aperture was wrong on the camera and everything was underexposed. And he's like, I just had to do it again. No, thank you. Once would have been enough. I would have been like, hey, can we do a different sequence? Can we tone it down? I don't know if my legs can. I could not have. His feet and his ankles alone just had to be wrecked.
Yeah, and we've brought this up a few times, but I think the movie is such a confection, and then you hear about like how grueling making it was. It's really interesting to me because it seems like really featherweight when you watch it. Like, oh, this is such an airy, like lovely film that you don't have to think about too much. It's just joy on screen, and then you hear like they really had to grind to make this goddamn thing.
It's just crazy. I captured some audio from this movie because there was a lot of great like clips and moments and things. I want to play some of these just because like it was wonderful. This guy, at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, you mentioned him.
I loved him. And he had the crazy eyes.
They should have added him to the opening credits.
They really should have. It shows also how fandom is crazy today. I can't imagine being, on that level of people actually recognizing you when you go out in the street, like of any level. But that's not new at all. And in some ways it was tougher at that time because they had more physical access. There weren't because there's a moment in this where, I
was going to say, Travis, you say that's not new, but when this movie is set, that was new. Because Charlie Chaplin was famous in a way in the 1920s that no one had ever been famous before.
This is true.
Worldwide.
You're right. But I sort of mean like it's not new for today because it's been happening for 100 years because there's that scene with Don and Cosmo where the car breaks down to get the flat tire or whatever it is. He gets out of the car and is immediately just mobbed, and to the point where they're tearing his jacket apart. Which would be scary to be in that kind of a situation. And the way he handled it was, of its time, where he just like ran away. One of the IMDb goofs was when he jumps on top of the rail car, he grabs it's the post that goes up to the electrical wire. And they're like, in reality, he would have been electrocuted. Well, of course, but it's a movie. So get over it. He also jumped off of that onto a moving car and didn't break both his legs. So
he's the dueling cavalier.
Exactly. But yeah, just the fandom. But that Zelda guy got me. And I also loved the journalist whose job it was to stand there and announce everyone coming into the premiere at Man's Chinese.
I want to give a shout out to the costume designer of the kind of like anime Wong style Spider-Woman outfit.
I want to give a shout out to the costume work in this entire movie. One of my notes was every single costume in this movie was phenomenal. And then I saw where it was the budget for the costuming alone was $150,000 at the time, which they got their money's worth out of that because the costumes throughout this movie are amazing and they're just this Technicolor rainbow. I loved so much of it. But yeah, like those opening dresses and things that Zelda and everyone was wearing. Oh.
Yeah. And that goes back to just like all of the details in this movie are done as well as they can be, I think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But I had this.
Of course, it's a nice picture. Those romantic lovers of the screen, Don Lockwood and Lena Lamont.
The way that's mixed is great too, because that's how it would be if you were there. You would barely hear what this woman is saying over the throngs of people.
It's like the Beatles at Shea Stadium.
Yeah. the romantic lovers of the screen. And at this point in the movie, we don't know that they do not get along. They're putting on the appearances quite well. And then I also liked...
It's no wonder they're a household name all over the world, like bacon and eggs.
You know, like bacon and eggs. And then when I noticed that Don wasn't letting Lena talk, and I get it now. By the end of the movie, it made sense, right? Like that was a conscious effort because they didn't want to belie the screen persona of Lena.
It's probably a studio directive. I don't know if it was necessarily Don's choice.
Right. At the time, in the beginning of the movie, it felt like it was Don's choice. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like this guy. But as the movie progressed, I realized, yeah, that's probably coming from their marketing people, basically telling him, like, don't let her talk. But I loved...
We screen actors aren't much good at speaking in public, so we'll just act out our things.
And it took me a second to realize, oh, that's right, because they're silent film stars. So, of course, speaking in public, even though he's great at it, which is wonderful. It's just a
dignity.
It's a fun.
Always dignity.
Always. Oh, the juxtaposition of his entire life story and then what we were seeing in that flashback. Just, I love that kind of storytelling.
It's really well done. I'd like, one of the things I like about this movie is I think the jokes hold up even today.
They do. They absolutely do. So I mentioned him, but Roscoe Dexter, my favorite character in the movie. I've only got a couple of clips of his, but they were, anytime this is mentioned.
We've lost more Don Stuntman on this pictures. It'll take hours to get a new one over from Central Casting.
I love Central Casting. Central Casting is my favorite thing of old Hollywood. It's a term that I will use today. Like at one point in my life, I was a taxi driver. I drove a cab in town, and a friend of mine looked at me and he's like, you know what? If we called down to Central Casting and asked for a cab driver, you would show up. And that's, I use that all the time. So I love when I hear it in movies because it's just such a fun idea of like, again, it's the studio's got all these people on contract where you just call down and you be like, I need a stunt man that can be the heavy in a movie. And he's, it's got to be sinister looking, and they'll send you somebody. Love it. But some more Roscoe.
Anyway, it's comfortable. But into the bush!
Into the bush. They hit the microphone in the bush.
And I love a slow burn meltdown in a film. And Roscoe does a really good job with it.
Well, it's great because he got super loud, but by the third time he had to tell her, it was no longer, okay, quiet. He wasn't doing this anymore.
He's trying to keep it together.
Okay, quiet!
Like, that's the first time. That's him already lost it. And,
Quiet! Roll 'em!
like, he's doing that, and it was so good, but by the third time, he's just like, okay, quiet, roll it. And he's like hiding in the recording booth.
I wonder if he's making a subtle commentary about Gene Kelly's behavior on set.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. But Roscoe he killed me throughout the whole movie. Okay. Gene Hagen, Lena. Lena's great. We mentioned this, but this was a great line. And this is good callback because we heard this early.
What's wrong with the way I talk? What's the big idea? Am I dumb or something?
No.
The reaction is great. But it's the am I dumb or something? And then that's right at the beginning of the movie, and it's called back an hour and a half later. Right towards the end when she's having her moment with RF in the office. And she mentions that a couple of times. I loved it. That was a wonderful callback.
Could not enjoy that performance more. I like the I make more money than Calvin Coolidge put together is kind of a dumb joke, but it gets me every time.
So good. It's so good. I also, during the middle of Roscoe's meltdown.
Well, I can't make love to a bush.
See, that one genuinely got me laughing.
Yeah. No,
when you played it.
That's genuinely funny. Much like this, and this is also Kathleen Freeman.
Now, ta-te-ti-to-tu.
Ta-te-ti-to-tu.
Oh, that woman's got a lot of work ahead of her.
Yeah, it's
And by the way,
Lordy McGordy.
yes,
Is she great?
credit to Hagen's performance in her moment at the end of the movie when she's trying to talk to everybody and set up singing. She's still got the voice, she's still got the accent, but you hear little bits of those rounded vowels mixed in, which is a small thing that she doesn't have to do, but it adds another layer to the performance where you can tell Lena as a character is actually trying, she just can't get it. Much like finding the microphone, she just can't figure it out. So I loved that. I also love this reaction.
People. I ain't people.
It's very Betty Boop sounding at that point.
Yeah.
And then I had to get both.
Why?
That's just for my soundboard. I just want that to be able to have on hand at any point. And also
For the upcoming morning zoo radio program you're
exactly.
gonna launch.
Yep. Hey, you know what? It's good to have a soundboard ready at any point. You never know when you're going to be on Morning Zoo. But also, this is a phrase I just adore.
Just a teensy weensy bit.
Teensy weensy. Always gets me. No, Lena is a wonderful character because the start of the movie, she does feel like she's just kind of dumb and ditzy. And by the end, you realize she isn't. She just isn't quite as clever as maybe she thinks she is. And how that whole thing played out, I actually really liked. I liked how she comes in with the, I read my contract and I know what it says and I can do. And she leaked information to the press and all of this. And she's thinking she's got the royal flush.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way it goes at the premiere, I loved it because I honestly thought they had me. They had me for a second with the whole like telling Kathy that she needs to do this one more time and her being like, fine, I'll do it one more time, but I never want to talk to you again. And it's in the middle of it, you realize that Don and Cosmo and RF were playing it out.
Yeah. And that's sort of like the of its time stuff where you're like, if the movie were made today, Kathy would be in on the plot. And instead it's like, we can't let this young girl in on our clever machinations.
Right.
And I feel like that's where, that's sort of the sexism of the time coming through in the film.
It is, but I'm glad that it played out the way that it did.
I do love the esprit de corps of RF and Cosmo and Don, like singing along and pulling on. Like they are having so much fun pulling that curtain up to reveal Kathy as the singer and give Lena Lamont her comeuppance. That it redeems itself through sheer bonhomie.
Yes,
so, fair enough.
Really was. There's some Gene Kelly lines because I love old sayings too, and this one was good.
You shouldn't believe all that banana oil that Dora Bailey and the columnists dish out.
I don't know that I've ever heard the term banana oil, but I want to use that now for like malarkey.
No, it's a good.
It's real good.
It's a good Don Lockwood saying to take into your day to
You
day.
can't believe all that banana oil. I just need to use that. I also liked, this is from the beginning.
What's the matter with that girl? Can't she take a gentle hint?
She can't take a blunt hint. Like, you weren't exactly being gentle, and she still wasn't getting it. So, I also had...
Believe me, I don't like her half as much as I hate you.
That was so good because, again, that's like very meta in that everybody on set's having trouble with Gene Kelly, and then here's Gene Kelly as Don Lockwood with Lena, and their characters do not get along now. But to everybody that would be watching the silent film, they're the greatest of lovers, and it's just this wonderful bit of professionalism and screen chemistry that they had, and I liked that on so many levels. I also get funny noises like. That's just Gene Kelly making a weird noise. I liked it quite a bit. Also, along the lines of banana oil.
Kathy, I'm trying to say something to you, but I I'm such a ham.
It's just calling yourself a ham is wonderful. Because it's a great term, just being a ham, just being a dope. I loved it. I like, here again is that chemistry.
Oh, Donnie, you couldn't kiss me like that and not mean it just a teensy-weensy bit.
Meet the greatest actor in the world. I'd rather kiss a tarantula.
But you don't mean that.
I don't. Hey, Joe, bring me a tarantula.
That's well done.
There's your teensy-weensy again, too.
Yeah. But it's just like his reaction. What? Bring me a tarantula. Come on, I'll prove it right here. Was great. We talked a little bit about Debbie Reynolds. She's great. Everybody in this movie is great, but to be so young in this, she's cast at 19 years old. And it's one of those things where there's certain people, you see them at a young age and you just know, like, that's somebody that's got it, right? I just talked about that recently in another show where I saw it was Patrick Swayze's first, one of his first screen roles was in an episode of MASH. And you watch that episode and you're like, that kid's got something. And that was me watching Debbie Reynolds in this. I'm like, you can tell there's a star in there.
Yeah.
Because of how good she is.
And it's funny, like the first time I was on this show, we were talking about Mulholland Drive, which is like another film about an ingenue. I feel like it's a similar thing with Naomi Watts in that movie, where you're like,
yes,
this person has arrived. And this is not Debbie Reynolds' first film, but I think it's the first film that people knew it, like think of when they think of Debbie Reynolds' first film. And she is phenomenal in it. She's so adorable.
She absolutely is. It's not her first film, but it's the film that made her Debbie Reynolds.
Yeah.
And the first scene with her, when he hops into her car and she's immediately just nonplussed with him at all. And when they get to, there's a couple of moments in there. The first one is when he talks about how the fans were the ones that like were tearing his jacket apart, and just the way she says,
They did that to you? That's terrible.
like that's great. But then her sing-songy way of saying,
Here we are, sunset in Camden.
like, come on, as you put it, just cuter than homemade shoes. Like, it's just absolutely wonderful.
It's the most accurate phrasing you can have for Debbie Reynolds in this film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can see where her daughter got some of that too. Carrie got a lot of that from her. It's just, I loved her in this. I got a couple other ones. I love getting laughs in movies. Laughs always get me. I have to feel like this is a bit of a laugh of relief after 40 plus takes of trying to get that couch to move the way that it did. Because this is them at the end of the Good Morning song.
When they kind of collapse into the couch.
Like, that's just got to be like, okay, we got it. We're done.
And man, that Good Morning song is a real earworm. Like, that'll stick in your brain.
Has been all day.
The rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. And it was funny because I didn't realize, like, I had heard it many, many times.
It's in a lot of ads, I think.
It is, but the version that I had heard was this version from this movie, and I didn't realize it until they started singing, and I'm like, I was like a sleeper agent unlocked, right? I was awoken, and I was like, oh. So that was pretty cool. Cosmo had a couple great ones.
You got to show a movie to party. It's a Hollywood law.
Just Donald O'Connor was phenomenal in this, all the way through. I love this exchange with RF because this is pretty much everybody in Hollywood. I have to feel like
sensational. Cosmo, remind me to give you a raise.
ORF.
Yes.
Give me a raise.
Oh, Cosmo.
Oh, you
such a jokester.
You scamp.
I feel like Cosmo needed a love interest in this movie too, though.
He did. No, he really did. Honestly, Cosmo and Kathy have more chemistry on screen than Kathy and Don.
I think that's true.
This is a great little tongue twister poem deal.
Moses supposes his toes are roses, but Moses supposes erroneously. Moses, he knows his toes aren't roses. As Moses supposes his toes is to be.
It's real good.
This is a song that I sort of like the staging of, but I don't love the song. And this was, I think, one of the few songs that was written for the film.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love the Moses supposes song, if I'm being entirely honest.
It is
here on Wait You Haven't Seen.
It is the most filler moment of the movie for me, because it comes out of nowhere. There is no like lead into a song. It's just all of a sudden, here we are in a song, and now we're going to do the dance routine. And it has the kind of classic thing of like, we're going to have some lyrics and some singing, but then we're going to go a very long stretch with just dancing.
Just dancing of them sort of Marx Brothers style, completely tearing the place apart.
Yeah. It's not bad, but it is by far the weakest, I think, of the movie, and felt the most of, all right, we got to pad this out. But Moses supposes his toes are roses. This I just got because it sounded funny to me.
Her cloak is trimmed with monkey fur to lend a dash of drama.
It was monkey fur. I don't know that monkey fur has ever been, I've never thought of it as something to trim anything with. So, you know.
Well, it's the silent era. So
true. The constant need to not let Lena know, which I liked because it was planted all the way through, and sort of this idea that they weren't necessarily afraid of her, but at the same time, she was such a big star that they had to like shelter her.
I think they were a little afraid of her because she could throw a tantrum.
True.
And by a tantrum, like she could legitimately foul up productions and get things shut down. And she got Kathy fired from her job. She could have gotten Kathy fired from the film job in the Rita Moreno picture. Like, I think there are, like, they didn't want her to know about being overdubbed because she would have had a fit about that. So I think there are legit reasons. I think Lena had enough. Lena's not powerless. And I think Lena had enough power that they wanted to keep her in the dark on this stuff. Like, whether or not that was the ethical call is up for debate. But Lena is a malicious presence in this film, a hilarious malicious presence, but a malicious presence nonetheless. She's a chaos agent. So I can understand.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I like it because I do think in a modern version of this movie, if you were to write it from scratch today, they would play into that, I think, a bit more. Play into the diva nature of it more and the power that she had. Because that is one thing that makes, I think, her character and her performance more interesting, is that she has that level of power and does actually exercise some of it. It doesn't pay off for her, but she does follow through and actually do something.
Yeah, this movie does not do a lot with nuance, which I think is just Hollywood musicals of the 40s and 50s. Did you read the thing about how they came to Gene Kelly with the Sound of Music script to direct it? And he said, get someone else to direct this piece of shit.
I did not, but I did read where he said he was asked by the screenwriters what he thought of the script, and he said it was moronic. So I can absolutely hear him saying that about The Sound of Music too. We mentioned it earlier, but I want to talk a little bit real quick about the dream ballet sequence at the end of the movie, because the visuals of that, there's two distinct different visual moments that to me were astounding. The first one was when he is the hoofer coming into town, into New York, and there's the moment where he's going along on the conveyor belt. That was, it took me a second before I realized, oh, he's on a moving platform. That's really cool. And how like everybody behind him is moving at one pace, and he's going against the grain and dancing with that. That was awesome. And it was just this bright Technicolor, just explosion of craziness. And again, costume work. The costumes in this were astonishing. But all this goes on. Then we're in the nightclub and everything that happened there. But this dream ballet with that long veil coming off of her costume, the thing must have been, 50 feet long? It was ridiculous. blew my freaking mind. Because you have to think about the fact that they're doing all of that with a physical veil of whatever the material was and fans. There is no visual effects to that in post-production. That's all happening on that soundstage. It was masterful the way that that all looked and the way that that moved. I absolutely loved it.
And I do want to give a brief history of the Dream Ballet.
Please do.
So on stage, it came to popularity with Oklahoma, the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical. And then it started getting incorporated into films as well. And Gene Kelly was a huge proponent of the Dream Ballet, which I think he was doing them in An American in Paris before the Oklahoma film came out in 1955. So, but you know, there's, I mean, my favorite Dream Ballet in any film is In the Red Shoes.
Okay.
But this is a really good one. The American in Paris one is great. Oklahoma's got a great one. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers has a really good one. I genuinely love a Dream Ballet. In recent films, one of the only the Coen brothers will occasionally put them in movies. Like Hudsucker Proxy has one.
Yeah.
Big Lebowski has one.
Big Lebowski has a great one.
And the Barbie movie, I'm Just Ken, is not maybe strictly a Dream Ballet, but it is definitely paying homage to the form there. And I'm hoping that they bring them back. Pearl has one.
Yes.
The Mia Goth film. So every so often a film will have a Dream Ballet, and I am here for it every single goddamn time.
Yes.
And this is one of the greatest Dream Ballets in any film. And I want more films to have Dream Ballets.
It's so expertly done, and the use of the depth of the stage that they built for it and how big that was. And again, knowing that it's all done in camera and it's all done on stage, to me is so impressive, because you have to build that and you have to frame it and you have to film it in such a way. I did like that a lot of the choreography was to make sure and de-emphasize how much taller she was
than Gene Kelly. Yeah.
That kind of cracked me up. Like, I can totally see him doing that as he is the choreographer, but it's just such a beautifully done thing. And I could not stop marveling at the movement of that veil, and then realizing how heavy that has to be attached to her as it's being pulled and moved around like that. And she's got to dance against it as well. And then like it wrapping around both of them. It was just, it was so wonderfully put together.
Which is why, even though it doesn't advance the plot, I'm going to be like, fine. And honestly, the first time I saw the film, I was sort of like, this doesn't advance the plot. And then like, as I've watched it more and more through the years, I've been like, this is one of my favorite things in movies. I love this so much.
It's wonderful. Like the Good Morning song doesn't really advance the plot. It does a little bit, but it's got such an infectious energy. I don't care. I don't care that it doesn't advance the plot.
And the Singing in the Rain sequence, like I said, that reveals character. And I will say, like, in film, my favorite sort of couples dance sequence is Never Gonna Dance in Swing Time with Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. But some of the solo dances in this movie are among my favorite solo dance sequences.
Just so well done. I mean, look, Gene Kelly knew what he was doing. He was good. He was real good at it. He might have been difficult to work with, but he was good. And again, everything Donald O'Connor did in the movie was just gold.
And Gene Kelly has a really interesting screen presence because, you know, he's doing ballet, but he's also kind of jockish, which is not something like, which is why Jackie Chan is such an interesting comparison, or Buster Keaton, because obviously like what he's doing is really physical. But there's also a grace to it, but there's also this kind of like weird jockish energy to it, which I think contrasts him with Fred Astaire, who is much more refined.
Yes. What it gives to me is, I mean, Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire is like Jackie Chan, Jet Li, in that Jackie Chan and Jet Li are both phenomenal martial artists, but Jackie Chan brought a humanity and a levity to his performances because he embraced and he steered into the silliness of it that fit him in his persona better. And Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire, Fred Astaire is very agile and very refined, and Gene Kelly's a little bit rougher around the edge. He's a little more jazz and a little less refined. And I think both of those are really, really interesting to see. So I really enjoyed that. And
yeah, I'm glad we have both. It's like it's like Chaplin and Buster Keaton.
Yes.
Too.
You need those. You need those. I hesitate to say rivals because they're not. They really aren't. They're just different ends of a spectrum, and I like that. You want both of those because they complement each other.
Yes.
You appreciate what Fred Astaire is doing, and then you appreciate what Gene Kelly is doing, and both have a lot of merits to them. And I think Gene Kelly also had a really great screen presence. Like, again, early in the movie, I'm sort of like, do I like Don? But by the end of it, I'm like, no, Don's actually, like, I like Don as a character.
Fred Astaire could have never pulled off doing a duet with a cartoon with Jerry the Mouse, like Gene Kelly does.
No, absolutely not. No. It's just like, could Jet Li do drunken boxing? Yes, he could. But he's not going to do it in a way that Jackie Chan does drunken boxing. There's something in his performance that adds to that.
Yeah. And generally, I like Gene Kelly solo dances, and I like Fred Astaire partner dances.
Yeah, and I think some of that goes to, like, Fred Astaire, I think, was probably easier to work with because you hear stories about, you hear the story about him being on the stage, next stage over.
That sequence I mentioned, the Never Gonna Dance, Ginger Rogers' feet were also bleeding at the end of that sequence. I think they shot it an insane number of times. So I think he was also, like, really demanding. I don't think he screamed the way Gene Kelly did.
Right.
So there is that. And I also think, Astaire had, like, at least in the 30s, found a perfect partner that audiences wanted to see him with again and again, that I think he was never really able to replicate, despite working with Rita Hayworth and Sid Charisse and Judy Garland and all these incredibly talented people. There's some bits of chemistry that just are film magic and can't be replicated.
Yeah, you find those people. I mean, it's why, Jackie Chan would have his stable of stunt people that he would work with and be in every movie, because you get that professional shorthand with somebody where, Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers don't have to talk it out. They just can feel it. I just watched a movie with Donnie Yen called Killzone, and there's a fight sequence in that movie towards the end of it that was blocked out, but also largely improvised by the two of them because it was his sparring partner. So they understood how each other moved, and it was more of a, hey, let's just do this scene, and here's the major beats we want to hit, and we're just going to play around in between them, because they knew what they were doing and they knew how to do that. And yeah, when you find that type of thing with somebody, you want to really go for it and really work with that. So I can see that. No, this was Singin' in the Rain. I can't believe it took me this long to see it, but also I know that younger me didn't love musicals. I was kind of forced to watch some not great musicals when I was real young, whether it was like the, school field trip to go watch a musical that was fine, but it also wasn't the best written musical to begin with type of deal. And so I thought, I don't like musicals. Right. And then it turned out, no, I actually do. I just needed to get older and appreciate them more.
Yeah. Or you were seeing the wrong ones.
Also
that weren't resonating with you. And I think when you're younger, it's easier to draw these sort of lines about your opinions on things.
Very much so. Yeah.
And where it's sort of like as I've gotten older, I'm like, shut up, me. Like, just.
Yeah. Just like you're not as cool as you think you are. Yeah. And honestly, like, embrace these things that are different, right? Whether it be a musical or it be the weird movie, the weird David Lynch movie that maybe you didn't like, or it's the populist thing.
Yeah, it's better to go into things with curiosity. And it doesn't always work, honestly. I was last year, or the year before last, I was in Munich, and I was like, I've never been to the opera, and I need to do something in Munich. I'm going to go to the opera, and I was really hoping to have like a transformative artistic experience and be like, oh my god, I love the opera now. And it did not happen, but I'm glad I took the chance.
Yeah. You can't know until you take that chance. And I think part of it was a younger version of me avoided musicals because I thought I don't like them, even though, I grew up in the Disney Renaissance and it was all just Broadway musicals and animation. But
well, they're not like a lot of these movies are deeply uncynical. And so they're not cool in the way that you want to project as a teenager. So I get that.
I didn't think about that, but that's a great point. This is a deeply uncynical movie. Like this one in particular.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that's a great point to bring up. And especially like teenagers want to be, because you think you know everything when you're a teenager.
Yeah, totally. And
turns out you don't know shit.
Honestly, I didn't find that I loved silent films until COVID, until the pandemic, when I had a lot more time to dive into film history. And I was like, I'm going to give some silent films a shot. I had seen a few in like college film classes, but they didn't really take. And once I saw the right ones, I was like, I really like this form. This is a really interesting version of a medium that I love that is doing slightly different things. So I'm like this. I was always discovering new stuff. Passion of Joan of Arc knocked me on my goddamn ass, man.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's I think a big thing, right? Like I remember a musical that I was exposed to when I was younger because somebody was like, you have to watch this. And it did not resonate with me. White Christmas. I just couldn't get into that. That's just not my type of thing. Didn't do a thing for me. But I see some of these musicals now and it's just like, I love them. I don't
like White Christmas either.
Yeah.
It takes a while to get going.
And look, I love a slow burn, but there's a slow burn and then there's White Christmas.
Yeah.
But
I am with you. And like, I liked Sound of Music is hard to deny. There's some bangers in that movie. Captain Von Trapp tears up a Nazi flag. I'm like, you go.
Yeah.
So like there were musicals I watched as like a young kid, but as I reached adolescence, I was like, I was not on board, especially I think when you hit adolescence, you want to proclaim very loudly that you are that you're above things that are like appropriate for children because you're too mature for that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You get to that point where you're like, I don't like cartoons anymore. Cartoons is for kids. And then you realize, no, animation is phenomenal. And there's so many just amazing things you can do in animation that you can't do in a live action film, right? There's a reason why, Disney's Aladdin plays differently in the live action version versus the animated version. And it's not just the fact that they had Robin Williams in the animated version. There's just things you can do in animation that you can't do live action.
No, or realizing that like Chuck Jones Looney Tunes cartoons are some of the greatest pieces of American filmmaking of the 20th century.
Absolutely.
Or, the best Hayao Miyazaki films are as good as the best films made by anyone anywhere.
Because there's things you can portray in animation you can't do, and there's places you can go, and there's things you can expose that you can't do in live action, and vice versa. There's things in live action that animation can't do, and that's fine.
And to bring it back, I think that is the case for musicals. I think musicals allow characters to be emotionally honest in a way that a non-musical film can sometimes struggle with.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is something to the emotion of music as a universal language that, as Daniel Day-Lewis...
I was going to say one thing that novels do that movies can sometimes have a hard thing is interior voice. And musicals find a way around that because the songs provide interior voice.
That is a great way to put it. That is absolutely true because novels versus film are a different medium. So you're always having to adapt. And I think musicals are a different lane of a film medium, but they can do it in a different way because they can take that internal monologue and turn it into a song where in 3 to 4 minutes of a song and dance number, you can give so much information about characters that you couldn't just do in dialogue.
Are there other musicals that you've come to as an adult that you've been like, I like this medium now, or was Singing in the Rain where you're like, I'm diving in more?
Well, there was Singing in the Rain recently. I watched Bedknobs and Broomsticks for the first time, and that was one that really got to me. There's been a couple of musicals. Anna and the Apocalypse was one that I watched not that long ago, where I was like, wow, this is super fun, and it's a very different version of a musical. And also really getting into kind of appreciating a good jukebox musical like Moulin Rouge, where I saw that because I had seen some Baz Luhrmann stuff when I was younger, but seeing Moulin Rouge, I was like, okay, this is a way to do that kind of musical really well. And again, you get the right people involved in it.
Yeah.
You get somebody that really likes making it, and you get the right songs, and you get the right people singing those songs.
Full disclosure, I do not love Moulin Rouge. I love for Baz Luhrmann, I think Strictly Ballroom is one of the best movies of the 90s. I think that movie is so good. But
So-
Moulin Rouge didn't hit me the way it hit some people. And I know there are people who absolutely adore that movie. So I don't want to take anything away from them. But I felt like it was flattening pop music, and I love pop music. It's sort of like, it felt to me like American Idol, like where American Idol or Glee, where it's like, we're going to take these songs and we're turning them into kids bop. Like it's
I
sort
can
of like,
see that.
it was not what I like about pop music with Moulin Rouge.
So I really enjoyed Moulin Rouge. I have not seen Strictly Ballroom yet, but I have a friend of mine, Amy Frost, who has said that is one of her favorite movies, and that I am not allowed to watch it until I watch it for having her on the show to talk about it. It's
I
on
am
my
so
on our
looking
list.
forward to that episode because like that movie is phenomenal. It's the
Yeah.
best thing Baz Luhrmann has ever done.
It is just one of those things where I keep hearing about it, and it's getting on the list. Like, I enjoyed La La Land more than I thought I would, in part because I think like it's got that old Hollywood feel to it as well. But even something like I saw RRR for the first time, and that's got those musical numbers in it like that.
Yeah.
So I was having a conversation earlier today with a friend of the show, Bombats. Bjorn is a huge fan of Indian cinema. He's the one that kept telling me to watch RRR till I finally did, and I had MC Williams on to talk about it. And but he hadn't watched Singin' in the Rain, and so when I mentioned it for the show, he's like, "Perfect! I've got an excuse to watch it now." And he starts watching it, and then I'm getting messages from him all day about the movie. And one of the things he said was like, movies like this aren't made by Hollywood anymore, but India kind of took that formula and ran with it and really distilled it down and kept doing it. And that's a lot of Bollywood is what those old Hollywood musicals were. And
Yeah.
watching RRR, I get it. Like,
I've
it
seen
really is that.
RRR, but for the most part, Bollywood is more of a blind spot for me than I
Same.
would like. It's hard. I can only be nerdy about so many things. But I would, I totally see that with what I've seen of Bollywood films.
Mhm.
And I think I also wonder if like when that gets incorporated back into American cinema, because there was a period in the 80s and early 90s where Hong Kong action movies were eating the lunch of American action movies so thoroughly.
Mhm.
And then eventually Hollywood, it just became undeniable. And Hollywood started, they hired John Woo over to do Hard Target. They just started incorporating some of those elements into Hollywood films, and it became less obvious as they brought some of those directors over.
Yeah.
I think there was, they made an attempt to make Chow Yun-fat like a Hollywood star. But I remember a period in my life where I was just like, why am I going to watch a Sylvester Stallone movie when I can watch The Killer?
Right, exactly. No, you saw that, right? John Woo came over. Yen Wo Ping started doing things in the U.S., and they incorporated that Hong Kong style of action into action films. And you saw, I mean, even the James Bond films. If you look at the James Bond films through the years,
Michelle Yeoh's in one of them.
yeah, and they eventually like started incorporating different filmmaking styles. I think we could see, because we have seen some more musical stuff coming back into film. I mean, Spielberg did West Side Story a couple years ago, right? And again, a lot of Bollywood influence and a lot of that coming back into Hollywood films and U.S. films. So I can see that happening. Another one, by the way, that was a more recent movie, and it's a jukebox musical, but it was one that I really, really enjoyed, was Better Man, the Robbie Williams biopic. And that's the other thing we're seeing a lot of is the musical biopics.
Yeah.
In the last number of years.
Oh, the one that really floored me was, did you see People's Joker?
No, but I heard about that. That's actually on a list. I got to watch that one.
It's really good. It's like, I think it's the only superhero movie worth a damn from like since 2020. And that's a musical. It's really good.
Yeah, I've heard so many good things about that, and it's been on a list and it's been on my short list to like sit down and watch. I just need to get myself to actually do it. But
like I think even before we were recording, we were talking about like punk rock stuff, and like that movie is punk as all get out.
Mm-hmm. Which I adore. Like I love seeing stuff that embraces the ethos of something like punk rock. Or whatever it is, like the Superman movie doing the kindness is punk rock thing was really fun for me last year. I enjoyed that, but one of the most punk rock things I've seen in recent years is, and it's a movie I did on the show a while back, but it's been a while since I've mentioned it, so I'm due to mention the movie. It's called Fish Story. It's a Japanese film. My friend Miles made me watch it. Came on the show to talk about it. And it had the most punk rock moment that I can think of in a movie, because it's this proto-punk band in 1970s Japan wrote a song. And in part of the song, the lead singer goes on this diatribe in the recording studio. And the producers are like, what can we do with this? Because he just like flipped out because they realized that the label wasn't going to release their album. And they're sitting in a noodle shop talking about it. And he's like, just make it silence. Who cares? No one's going to listen to it anyway. No one's going to listen to our song. So who cares? Just make it 45 seconds of silence. And they do that. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, this is the most punk rock like thought ever of no one cares. We don't care. Just screw it. Whatever. Do whatever you want. And I loved that moment. So I love seeing stuff like that in movies.
Yeah. With People's Joker, where it's like, I'm going to make a movie using Batman characters and not ask for permission.
Right. Oh. Beg for forgiveness. Don't ask for permission.
Like, it is not a guarantee that we would be able to legally see that movie.
Yes.
I'm sure it would be floating around on bootlegs, but the fact that you can sort of rent it from Apple is astounding to me.
It's just amazing. This has been a lot of fun. Singing in the Rain. I'm so glad. Like, it was in the Dragon Con Discord that like musicals came up, and it was just like, hey, here's an opportunity to talk about this and check this off like a bucket list. This is a movie I should have seen a long time ago, but thank you so much for like bringing it to me and saying you got to watch this.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, this was I think it was the Dragon Con Digital Media Track Discord.
Absolutely.
So shout out to Charles McFall and his amazing team, my homegirl Tyra Burton, and everyone who works on that track, because Charles has one of the best online communities at Dragon Con for that track. And that room is always putting on really great and cool stuff during the convention itself.
Charles and Tyra and Joe, everybody involved in digital media at Dragon Con are just some of my favorite people. And I'm so glad that like I have been able to be involved in that. And it's how we met, and it's great. So definitely, if you get to Dragon Con this year, come down into the basement of the Hilton, find us in the digital media rooms, and come say hi. But no, this was super fun.
Yeah. And if you go to Dragon Con on Thursday night, go to the atrium level of the Marriott and go to my classic alternative rock dance party Thursday night at, I think, 10 p.m. at Dragon Con too.
Which I need to try and do this year, because I missed it last year, and I need to do that. So
it is I am so grateful that con lets me do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming back. It'd been a while since you'd been on, but it's always a pleasure to have you here. We'll have to do this again.
Thank you for having me. This was really great.
This was, and you brought some really fun insights that, for a first time watching this, I didn't think about. So that's part of what I love about doing this is I get to expose somebody to a new movie or be exposed to something new, but then to hear things that I didn't even think about is great. And it's what makes art so much fun for me.
Yeah, no, totally.
So absolutely. What have you got going on you want to let people know about?
Sure. My podcast, The Best Stuff in the World, just started its new season with an interview with the former actress Hudson Like, who's most famous for playing Callisto on the popular TV show Xena Warrior Princess.
Yeah.
We only talk a little bit about Xena. We talk a lot about her current work with yoga and astrology readings and teaching dance. She is a really fascinating person. And at certain points during the discussion, it got like really deep and intense to a point where when I was watching Xena in the 90s, never in my life did I think I'd be having a really involved conversation with the woman in the leather bikini about public crying. So you can find that at beststuffpod.com. My other podcast, Gleaming the Tube, is coming back soon, where we discuss movies that involve skateboarding in some capacity with an episode about one battle after another. So
Nice.
Be on the lookout for that as well. And you can find that at gleamingthetube.net. And those are the two main places where you can find my stuff online.
Excellent. Definitely check those out. The Best Stuff in the World and Gleaming the Tube. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being here. This was fun, and I can't wait to see you at DragonCon again this year. So I do this show weekly, every week, twitch.tv/TV's Travis for the live stream, Sunday nights around 8 o'clock. Next week, I have Hammond Chamberlain coming back. And Hammond, last time we talked, he wanted to do a movie from 1972 called The Amazing Mr. Blunden. And he had talked about it, and I said, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So Hammond Chamberlain, podcast producer extraordinaire. I've actually finally started listening to one of the shows he's been producing for a while called The Art of Action, which is a ton of fun. He's a very good friend, and I'm going to see him in June. So that'll be a fun one. And then I have a swan named Emily coming on the week after to talk about Johnny Mnemonic because she hadn't seen it before, and I can't wait. That is some 90s cheese that is right up my alley.
Oh, awesome. Next time I come on here, it needs to be a movie I haven't seen.
Yes, we will find one. I will work on that, and I will let you know. But definitely, if you enjoy this show, go to tvstravis.com. You can find there links to like merch that I've got, as well as a Patreon that I do for this show, which lets me do things like DragonCon and Nerdtacular that I'll be doing in June in Salt Lake City. So if you want to help the show out financially, you can go there, patreon.com/WYHS. And you can help the show out there, or just listen to the show. I appreciate you all. A Stigma in the chat tonight, being my number one Canadian super fan. I will never be tired of that. Thank you so much, Stigma, for being here. Kevin, thank you so much for coming back on the show. And I'm going to find a movie you haven't seen, and we're going to talk about it.
Fantastic. And I will see you at DragonCon.
Yes. And so until then, just remember, everybody, to enjoy your movies. And everything is crazy, so let's be excellent to each other. All right, there's been Wait You Haven't Seen.
Anything I can do?
Sorry, I don't have time to find out.
I loved that. That was a great moment.
Yeah. I don't have a soundboard on mine.
Oh, I'm irresponsible with my soundboard.